Hi everyone, my name is Urina and I'm an education consultant in ACC Global Sydney office. And today I'll be speaking about why international students choose education and teaching course for their studies. So as we all know, education is an important consideration for pretty much every country around the world. And teacher and medical staff are always in demand. So that's one of the many reasons to study teaching, as you are more likely to get the job after the graduation. According to the recent survey, 84% of early childhood and primary teaching students are employed full-time within 4 months of graduation. By doing a professional teaching degree in Australia, you will learn to foster a student's learning in many different ways, to work with them to develop the creative, intellectual, social, and personal potential. Besides that, the other main thing to consider is average salary of a teacher ranges from $53,000 to $100,000, depending on your experience and the level you teach, which is great. So I'll definitely explain more about the courses related to education and teaching, and we will also have our education partner Desmond Wong from Australian Catholic University later in this video. So please keep watching. And for now, we have our migration agent, Varni, who will answer some of our questions. So welcome, Varni.
Hi, Urina. Thank you for having me.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us today. So Varni, can you please give us an insight on why our teaching and education course a good PR pathway?
Sure. Look, so for starters, graduates of teaching and educations are able to, when they finish their studies, apply for a temporary graduate visa. Now, while students are on this temporary graduate visa, they're able to further study if they choose to. Alternatively, they could stay and work and gain Australian work experience post their qualifications. So look, this then could be considered towards their PR pathways. So this will give them an ideal pathway to obviously looking at general skill migration and also potentially employer sponsorship should they meet the eligibility criteria. Now, further, it can also be seen that there is a high demand for teachers and also teaching graduates because the teaching occupation continues to be consistently be on the medium long-term strategic skilled occupation list. So that's indicating teachers occupations definitely in the migration demand list.
Okay, thank you. My next question, Varni, is that what are the process and requirements for AITSL skill assessment?
Sure. So look, the assessing body for teachers would be the Australian Institute for Teaching and School Leadership. So they are shortly known as AITSL. Now, for international students, their usual pathway is to get their full skill assessment with AITSL. Now, the requirement would be based on their qualifications and also English. Now, look, so in terms of looking at qualifications, all applicants will need to have completed a minimum of 4 years full-time studies or part-time equivalent, higher education, so that's at university level, So this must be relevant, so this must include actually a relevant teaching education qualification. This can also include other qualifications. So when referring to initial teacher education qualification, it actually refers to a study that must include an initial study education qualifications to the level of Australian bachelor's degree or higher degree. This should also include at least 1 year full-time or part-time equivalent higher education level study of early childhood, pre-primary or secondary school initial teacher education. Now, also as part of this initial teaching education period or studies, the student must have completed at least 45 days of supervised teaching practice with students relevant to their field of study, whether it's primary or secondary, in order to obviously get the full skill assessment. So in terms of qualification, so they need to have studied at least 4 years of higher level studies. And as part of that 4-year level studies, they should have at least studied 1 year full-time teacher's initial education qualification, which also includes 45 days of supervised training for teachers. Now, the secondary criteria the AITSL will be assessing applicants on will be their English capacity. So if in the event a student has studied in Australia, they then will be, and has met the 4-year study requirements, they then will be exempt from demonstrating their English capacity. In the event they haven't, they then will need to provide IELTS academic results, and they'll need to score at least a minimum of 7 in reading and writing, and a minimum of 8 in speaking and listening. So to sum it up, the qualifications and the English capabilities or proficiency will be assessed by AITSL in order to determine whether an applicant holds the relevant qualifications and meets the other requirements to be able to get their full skill assessment. So yes, once they get their full skill assessment, they could then look at their PR pathways.
So Varni, I would like to add up a question to your answer now. You mentioned that a student with higher qualification can get their full skill assessment. So would a student who are currently studying vocational education, for example, diploma of education, early childhood education and care, do they have PR pathway as well?
Yeah, so students that are currently pursuing studies in Certificate 3 and Diploma in Early Childhood and Care will be able to apply for their temporary graduate visa, and they could potentially get employment experience in that relevant field whilst they're on their 485. However, as the students of those particular studies, the occupation they'll be looking to nominate will be either childcare centre manager or a childcare centre educator. So those occupations potentially can lead to PR pathways, but they require post-qualification employment skills. In the event a student wants to become a pre-primary school teacher or secondary teacher, they can then choose to study a higher level studies at bachelor's or bachelor's level. Now, they may then get exemptions for having previously studied these vocational studies. So once, of course, they complete their bachelor's level studies, they then, of course, can look at becoming a teacher and potentially consider PR pathways as a teacher moving forward.
Okay, thank you so much. So I have one last question for you, Varni.
Sure.
What are the benefits for international students studying a teaching and education course in regional areas? Like, for example, ACU has a regional campus in Canberra and Ballarat. So how can students studying there could benefit?
Yeah, so look, there has been a lot of discussions around regionals and benefits of studying in regional areas. Now, look, if you're currently looking to pursue a study, or you're currently in the process of studying, studying in regional would definitely be a good option for you for numerous reasons. So if you're currently on a student visa, and let's say you begin studying in Canberra in a regional postcode, for having met the Australian study requirements and having continued to reside in regional area and also attended campus in regional would mean then when you're looking at your temporary graduate visa application process, you could additionally get 1 or 2 years, depending on your area code of study. Another benefit would be when a student finishes their bachelor's level studies, as long as they're able to get their full skill assessment done for their occupation, so whether it's the pre-primary school teacher or secondary teacher, they then will be able to, in most cases, depending on the state's criteria, be able to lodge their expression of interest under the graduate stream. So that's another benefit of a student when studying in regional, because subclass 491 visa requirements and state nomination requirements usually includes graduate stream, which then is considering that state students, and obviously, you know, looking at potentially students lodging their expression of interest quicker than having to wait another year, get their employment experience, or look at other stream pathways for state nomination. So that's another benefit for students studying in regional part of any Australia, basically.
Okay, so thank you so much, Varni. That's all the question I have for you today. So thank you so much for joining in. Your answers were really informative, and thank you again.
No worries. Thank you for having me, Urina.
So that was all about the information about education courses from migration point of view. And now when you generalize the education course, different degrees may specialize in areas such as early childhood education, primary teaching, and secondary teaching. And a student can opt to choose the pathway towards teaching occupation based on their level of education. So let me start with Diploma of Early Childhood Education. And as Varni has also mentioned, that a Diploma of Early Childhood Education will definitely not lead you directly to be assessed as a teacher, but then it can definitely create a pathway towards bachelor's, and students studying this course can be exempted with some credit points too. So this course is normally 1.5 years in total, and you can look around the price range of $13,000 to $20,000, depending on the providers you choose. Talking about the entry requirement, you at least have to complete Australian Year 10 or equivalent, and the academic IELTS of overall 6 with no score less than 5.5 in any band. The next one is Bachelor of Education, which is usually 4 years in length. Student can choose to specialize in either early childhood education, primary or secondary teaching, sorry. At undergraduate level, you typically do not expect to study any specific teaching course beforehand, but you will need to have a completed year 12 or equivalent. It is actually advisable for students to study a course that are accredited. For example, Bachelors of Early Childhood Education should be approved by ASEQA, and Bachelors of Primary and Secondary Teaching should be accredited by AITSL, which will lead them to become a primary or secondary teacher later in future. Besides that, the standard English language requirement for Bachelor of Early Childhood Education is IELTS overall 6.5 with no band less than 6, whereas for Bachelor of Education, Primary and Secondary Teaching, the standard English language requirements is IELTS of minimum of 7 in reading and writing and minimum of 8 in listening and speaking. But again, some providers also accept students with 7.5 each band in listening and speaking. Moving forward, we have Masters of Teaching. Usually, you'll need at least an undergraduate bachelor's degree in your chosen area to demonstrate you have the requisite knowledge of what you would cover. So again, you can choose to study either primary teaching or secondary teaching. For Masters of Teaching Primary, you are expected to have a bachelor's degree or equivalent that includes at least 1 year of equivalent full-time study relevant to one or more learning areas in primary school curriculum. Similarly, for Master of Teaching Secondary, you will require a bachelor's degree, and you must also nominate 2 subject areas of specialization based on your previous studies. You might also require to write an essay, which is known as Teacher Selector Statement or Teacher Capability Statement, explaining your personal and academic qualities to become an effective teacher. Similarly, the most important things to consider is the English language requirement, and that is 7 in each band in reading and writing and 8 in each band in speaking and listening. Again, moving forward, we have many education providers providing scholarship for international students studying this course. One of them is International Student Scholarship in ACU. The scholarship actually covers 50% of the total tuition fees and for the duration of the course, and it is merit-based. To explain in detail, we have Desmond Wang from ACU with us today. So welcome, Desmond.
Hello, hi Urina. Thanks for having me.
Hi, thank you for joining us today. So I'll leave the presentation to you. Over to you then.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so hello everyone out there tuning in. So my name is Desmond. I'm from ACU, the Australian Catholic University, and I'm actually based in the Melbourne campus. But of course, with ACU, we do have campuses across different cities in Australia. So my presentation today will basically go through those information, and of course, I'll give you a bit more information about our education courses, as well as our support services, as well as our scholarship options as well. So let's get started. So ACU, who are we? So the Australian Catholic University, we are a public university. We are a government-funded university. We accept students from all faiths, all beliefs, and all backgrounds. We are a well-ranked university. we have approximately about 4,500 international students from 107 different nationalities. So we do have a very diverse range of international students. And actually, we have only about 13% international students as well. So we have approximately 33,000 students altogether, and only about 4,500 are international. So we actually have quite a low percentage of international students as well. And we are a university with world-leading academics. So this slide here, you'll see a little bit of a timeline of the history of ACU. So an interesting fact is that ACU is actually one of the earliest education providers here in Australia. So the origins of ACU actually goes all the way back to 1857. So back during that period of time, the Catholic Church here in Australia had a network of schools and a network of hospitals which they run and manage and look after. So because they had all these extensive list of schools and hospitals, they decided to establish their very own training colleges to train their own nurses and also to train their own teachers for their hospitals and their schools. So that's basically how ACU started. So these training colleges were established in different cities across Australia. So in Brisbane, in Sydney, in Melbourne, in Canberra, and also in Ballarat, which is a regional town in Victoria. And then in 1991, these colleges actually merged to officially become a university. So it officially became the Australian Catholic University in 1991. And obviously this year being 2020, we are officially celebrating 30 years as a university. And pretty much for the last decade, for the last 10 years, ACU has actually been one of the fastest growing universities here in Australia. So here you'll see a map, obviously, of all the different ACU campus locations. So if we start up in Queensland, we have a campus in Brisbane. In New South Wales, we've got 2 campuses at the moment, one in North Sydney, one in Strathfield. We have a campus in Canberra. In Victoria, we have a campus in Melbourne and also a campus in Ballarat as well. On there, you'll see we do have an Adelaide campus, but please do note that we don't actually offer any programs for international students out of the Adelaide campus. And for offshore, we actually have a campus in Rome in Italy as well. Now, actually, next year in 2021, we are actually introducing another new campus in New South Wales. So that's going to be our 3rd campus in New South Wales. That's going to be based in Blacktown, so in the western suburbs in Sydney. So that's one of the new and exciting developments that will be coming up next year for us. And we will be offering some of our education programs in that campus as well. In terms of ACU's growing reputation within Australia, so ACU is actually the largest provider of graduate teachers here in Australia. So essentially what that means is that every year, ACU actually enrolls the biggest number of students into teaching programs anywhere here in Australia out of all the Australian universities. So that means also every year we have the most number of teaching and education students graduating from ACU as well. So we do actually hold that record, and we also hold that same record as well actually for our nursing program as well. So traditionally that's what we've been very well known for at ACU here, particularly for our education programs and also for our nursing programs. ACU, we are actually number 1 in Australia when it comes to graduate employment rate. So that's definitely a highlight for us. So according to the statistics, in terms of our undergraduate students, 95.5% of them to find employment shortly after they graduate from ACU. When it comes to our postgraduate students, it actually goes up to 98.6%. So that's actually really high. We're also the highest ranked university in Australia for graduate employer satisfaction. So again, essentially what that means is that employers out there, they really value the quality of ACU graduates. We've been recognized with 89% for international student satisfaction for program content. So that's very reassuring for us, because we know that when international students choose to come and study at ACU, 89% of them feel that what they're learning from ACU is really valuable. We've been recognized with 5 stars for our campus facilities, and we have also been recognized with 5 stars for our full-time employment for our students, overall experience at ACU, learner engagement, and also skills development for our students. In terms of ACU's reputation globally within the world, in terms of our world rankings, so we are ranked in the top 300 of universities in the world. So that places us within the top 2% of universities within the world. Within the Asia Pacific region, ACU is ranked in the top 80 universities. And also, if we look at the young university rankings, ACU is actually ranked in the top 100, so the top 70 in the world for the young universities. If we look at our subject rankings in terms of our education programs, we are ranked in the top 75 in the world, so very highly ranked and very highly recognized. So a couple of reasons why you should consider studying education at ACU. So like I mentioned previously, we have a very long history when it comes to educating and training students to becoming future teachers. It is something that ACU has been doing for well over 150 or 160 years. We do have very strong connections in terms of industry placements for our students with all the different types of schools. And again, that's all come together through the years that we've been working with them, the long association and long history that we have in the teaching space. We have a very high ranking as a university, and also a very high ranking for our education programs. So in terms of the recognition there, it's definitely one of the best here in Australia. Our graduate employment rate. So like you've seen in 2 slides before, we are the highest when it comes to our graduate employment here in Australia out of any other universities. Our fees are also very affordable, and that's something I'll talk a little bit more about in the next few slides and give you an idea about our tuition fees. And we also have scholarships available. We have a wide range of campuses available, spread across the different states and territories here in Australia. So one of the good things about ACU is that we run all of our programs on a national curriculum. So you could perhaps, start your studies in one city. If your personal circumstances or living arrangements do change and you may need to relocate to a different city, and that city happens to have an ACU campus, you could actually apply for a campus transfer and just continue with your studies as normal. So there's not going to be any interruptions to your studies. Another big thing that we really focus on is our professional experience or our industry placements for our students. And that's actually one of the key components which leads to a student's employability after they graduate from ACU. So in terms of the work we do, that we provide, the experience for our students when they do their placements, that actually really helps them with their employment outcomes when they graduate from ACU. So that's why they score really highly in terms of our graduate employment outcomes. And I'll talk a bit more about that in the next few slides as well. So all of our education and teaching programs are also fully accredited. So that means when students have that qualification, they're able to use that qualification to apply for their teacher's registration in the different states and different territories as well. So our programs are fully recognized and fully accredited as well. So here at ACU, we offer a wide range of undergraduate programs in education. So here you will see an overview of different programs that we have. So we have programs that start all the way from early childhood education, birth to 5, going into the Bachelor of Education, early childhood and primary. So that's for those who might be interested in combining both early childhood and primary. We also have a Bachelor of Education in Primary only. We also have a Bachelor of Education in Primary and Secondary. So that's if you want to combine both primary and secondary, that will allow you to register to become either a primary school teacher or a secondary school teacher. We actually also have special education. So if you're interested in that, we do have a Bachelor of Education in Primary and Special Education. We also have a Bachelor of Education just in secondary education. And lastly, we also have a Bachelor of Education in secondary and combined with a Bachelor of Arts degree. So perhaps if a student might have a particular interest in a particular area in arts, whether it might be humanities or mathematics, you could study that dual program as well. In terms of our program duration, they're all 4 years. So essentially for any undergraduate programs in teaching or education, they are 4 years in duration. If you look at our annual tuition fees, you will see that our fees are very, very affordable. So our annual tuition fee for all of our undergraduate programs are $24,104 per year. So essentially about approximately $24,000 per year. We've got 2 semesters in 1 year. So what that means is that the tuition fee per semester is approximately about $12,000. If you look at our IELTS requirements, it is a little bit lower when it comes to our Birth to 5 program. So it's only asking for IELTS 6.5, minimum 6.5 in each band. But for our other programs, the other programs are considered initial teacher education programs. So these programs can allow you to apply for registration perhaps as a primary school teacher or as a secondary school teacher. For these particular programs, the English entry requirements do actually go up a little bit higher. So it's asking for minimum 7, IELTS 7 for reading and writing, and 7.5 for listening and speaking. And finally, on the last column, you can see the different campuses which offer the different programs. So depending on which program you choose to study, the options of campuses can be slightly different as well. So that's just an overview of our undergraduate programs. The next slide here, this one here is looking at our postgraduate program. So for our postgraduate programs, essentially we've got two offerings. We've got our Masters of Teaching program in primary or our Masters of Teaching program in secondary. So for these master degree programs, they are only 2 years in duration. The tuition fee per year is exactly the same as our undergraduate program, so approximately $24,000 per year. The English entry requirements are a little bit different. So it is asking for minimum 7, IELTS 7 in reading and writing, minimum IELTS of 8 in listening and speaking. But if you have studied a undergraduate program here in Australia, you spend at least 2 years or 3 years completing that undergraduate program, bachelor's degree program here in Australia, it is possible that you could get an English waiver as well. So that's something, if you're interested to find out more, get in touch with AECC and we can have a look at your particular circumstances or your situation, and then we can work that out as well. So again, for these programs, these master degree programs, depending on which one you choose, there are different campus offerings there as well. So just to give you an idea, so I've just picked out one of our more popular programs, which is the Bachelor of Education, Early Childhood and Primary program. So this is actually one of the sample course maps for this particular program, just to give you an image in your head, how it's structured. There's quite a bit of information here, but I guess what I wanted to point it out is that, so it's a 4-year program, 4-year course. For us, we only have 2 semesters in 1 year. So in each year, you only complete 2 semesters. Normally, in each semester, you would undertake 4 units. So basically here in this table, you would see the different units that you would take for each semester. In terms of the placements for undergraduate students, normally you start your first placement in your first semester of your second year. So as we move to this slide here, so basically this maps out the arrangements of the placements for this particular program. So you will see in total there will be 110 days when it comes to this particular program, the Bachelor of Education, Early Childhood and Primary. So that's again split into different years. So you will see placements begin in your second year, that will continue into your third year, and then also into the fourth year. And each time you take your placements, it is in a slightly different area as well. So you never actually go out and do the same placement, 2 times. You do different placements, so we get our students exposed to different experiences and different placement opportunities, and that's very important for their learning experience. Moving on, I'm going to talk a little bit about our more popular postgraduate program in education, which is our Masters of Teaching secondary program. So Urina has touched quite a little bit in terms of the entry requirements and things like that. So this slide basically reflects that information. So you do need to have a bachelor's degree already, or the equivalent of an Australian bachelor's degree program. Now, one of the good things about the Masters of Teaching secondary program is that it doesn't really matter too much, I guess, what background you have or what qualification you have from your bachelor's degree program, because it can really be suitable for students coming from all different types of background. Simply because with this program, you do have to nominate 2 teaching areas, and these teaching areas have to reflect what you have completed for your undergraduate qualification. So moving on this slide here, so this is just the course structure of the Masters of Teaching secondary program. So as you can see again, it's a 2-year degree. We've got 2 semesters in each year. So of course, because it is a master's degree program with only 2 years duration, students do go out on their first placements a bit earlier. So in their second semester of the first year of study, students do end up going out on placements already. So these are all the units that you'll cover during the 2 years. And then this is basically how the professional experience is laid out. So in the first year, students would normally take on 20 days of professional experience, and in the second year it would be 40 days, so a total would be 60 days. So I was talking about the teaching methods before that you do have to nominate if you are interested in this program, and here you can see this is actually the list of all the teaching programs that we have, the teaching methods that we have available at ACU. Now, the offering of these teaching methods do actually differ slightly from campus to campus. So so that's something you might have to consider. And again, that's something that we can, if you get in touch with AECC, we can have a look at it and give you a bit more information that's, suited to your particular case. But yeah, just the thing to keep in mind is that with the teaching methods that you do nominate, it has to come from, or has to be related to your undergraduate qualification, or you've had a undergraduate and a postgraduate qualification. It must be related to them, because you must demonstrate that you do have background knowledge in those particular areas. So this is basically the list of options that we have for our teaching methods. At ACU, so the good thing is, depending on which state you're in, normally most universities would ask you, this is a requirement where you have to provide like a statement. So at ACU, we call it the teacher selector statement. Basically, it's 1,000 words that you have to write. There are a total of 12 questions. So we've got 2 categories. 6 questions in each category, so 12 questions in total. The questions are very straightforward. It's basically, wanting to find out more about your background, your interest in becoming a teacher, and also to learn a bit more about some of your experiences, your personal experiences when it comes to in this particular area. So we do have a guide to writing that. So it is something you have to prepare and include in your application. And I guess particularly for students who might be here in Victoria. Now, Victoria is a bit of a special case. So if you're thinking about applying for this type of program, like an initial teacher education program here in Victoria, most universities will actually ask you to go and take an online interview test, which is called CASPA. I think the cost is about $80 for CASPA, and you have to, go to their website, register yourself, book yourself in, look at the dates they've got available for the online interview, select that and book and pay. So the good thing about even here in Victoria, for us, for our Melbourne campus, if you're looking at doing this program in Melbourne or perhaps in Ballarat, you can even just write this teacher selector statement and include that in your application. So that means for applicants, you don't actually have to go through taking that CASPA test if you're looking at applying to study at one of our campuses here in Victoria. So that's definitely a positive and a much easier process than having to go through CASPA. So in terms of scholarships, the main one that we have is our International Student Scholarship for our education programs. So this is a merit-based scholarship. So what we do need to look at is you do have to demonstrate that you do have a GPA of at least 80% from your previous studies or from your latest qualification or from your most current study. So if you do have that 80% GPA, you do have to check. So if it's from a study that you have already completed, if you're going to apply for our undergraduate program, that GPA cannot be more than 2 years old. So if it's already more than 2 years old, unfortunately, it doesn't count. If you're looking at applying for a postgraduate program and you do have that 80% GPA and you've already completed that qualification before, as long as that GPA is not more than 4 years old, then it still counts. So if you meet these requirements, what you need to do is you need to apply and get an offer letter from ACU first. So just a conditional offer letter, even if it's a conditional offer, get one of those first. And then what you need to do is you have to look at which semester you're going to commence your studies at ACU. So if you're going to commence your studies in February intake, you do have to apply for this scholarship in September, the year before that. If you're going to commence your studies in the July intake, then you need to apply for the scholarship in April. So you have to keep a reminder about those opening dates for applications for the scholarship. You look at which intake you're going to start, then make sure you submit your application online for this scholarship in time when it opens. So with this scholarship, we do have 20 places every year for our international students. So it's 50%. So if you are a recipient, it means every semester of your study at ACU, you will receive 50% scholarship from ACU. So it's for the duration of the program. So to end my presentation, I'm just going to talk about the student support services that we have here at ACU. So on each of our campuses, we have dedicated international student advisors for our international students. So basically, when you come to ACU, if you do have any questions, any problems or any issues, doesn't matter how big or small it might be, you always know that there's someone there that can help you out, or at least point you in the right direction to other people who'll be able to help you or solve the issue that you might have. We have our academic skills unit. So what that means is that when you're a student at ACU, perhaps during the semester when you are working on your assignment or your essay, you might need some guidance, someone to look over your work, give you some recommendations, give you some guidance. You can book one-on-one consultation sessions with our academic skills advisors. We also have a careers development service. So what that means is that, when you commence your studies at ACU, perhaps you need a hand with writing your resume, or you've got a job interview lined up and you need someone to practice your interview skills with. Again, you can book these one-on-one sessions with our careers advisors, and they can help you with that as well. A very, I guess, important, additional service that we provide for our students is that we do have PASS sessions as well. So PASS are our peer-assisted study sessions. So basically what we do is on top of your lectures and on top of your tutorial classes, we run these PASS sessions for some particular units as well. So it doesn't cost anything extra. So what you can do is when you're undertaking that unit, if it offers these PASS sessions, you can basically come along and attend these additional learning sessions that will help you to further understand, what you've learned in the lectures and also in the tutorials. These PASS sessions are actually run by current students or students who had undertaken that particular unit and have done particularly well in that unit. So it kind of can give you a different perspective in terms of, going through that learning process or going through that process of understanding the content that you've learned for that particular lecture or that particular tutorial. So that's really to further enhance your study abilities. And also we do have student advocacy services as well. So if you do need that, we can refer you on and there'll be further support there available as well. Another thing that we do value very highly is, of course, students' health and also mental health and just overall well-being. That's something we really want to make sure that our students are looked after in that space. So we do have a comprehensive professional counseling service available. So as a student, if you do have any issues and you want to talk to someone confidentially about it, you can actually go and see the professional counselors that we have across the campuses. If there's a need for disability services, we do have that available as well. We do have student associations and also various student clubs across the different campuses as well. So when you're a student at ACU, there's so many opportunities out there for you to make new friends, meet new people, and get connected, socially, because that's very important as well. We also have student legal service. So if there are anything happening in that area, you can come and see us and we can refer you to those services as well. And we also have campus ministry, which is again a great place for our students to hang out. If you want to get to know more people, or they also have things like food banks and things like that. So for some students, if they're going through a tough time or a rough time, campus ministry, they'll always have something there for you to kind of welcome you and to help you out when there's a need as well. So for us, I guess that's one of the difference with ACU as well. We provide lots of, personal services for our students. We are so accessible for our staff members. Our doors are always open for our students to come in and to have a chat, or if there's any issues, there's always very easy to approach one of the staff members. So that's how we keep it at ACU. We want to make sure that it's a welcoming environment, and we want to make our students feel like they're at home as much as possible. So that kind of basically wraps up my presentation about ACU, about our courses in education, our scholarships and our services. Hopefully that gives you the information that you need to kind of have that interest, maybe to find out more. And I definitely encourage you to get in touch with AECC, in the first instance, to learn more about these programs. And then they'll be able to help you out and give you some further information as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the amazing presentation, Desmond. That was really informative, and I'm sure our viewers will love that. So I actually have some questions for you, if you don't mind.
Yes,
so
definitely.
I just wanted to know how many total intakes are there available in a year for this course?
Yeah, so it depends on the program. So of course, all programs will have a February intake. So February generally is our main intake. So all programs will definitely have a February intake. Now, some programs may have a July intake as well. So generally speaking, if the program is based in one of our bigger campuses, perhaps in Sydney or in Melbourne, they would most likely have a July intake as well. So it really depends on the specific program. So some programs might just have a February intake. Other programs would have both a February and a July intake. So definitely check out our website. So if you go to the AC website, you look up for the particular program that you're interested in studying, you'll see exactly which intakes they're offering for that particular program and for which campus.
Okay, thank you so much. So one more question. Basically, most of the students will be keen to know this, that does ACU will help organize the placements to students?
Yes, definitely. So that's something that we do really well and we're really proud of, actually. So within our Faculty of Education and Arts, we have a specific a placement office that basically arranges all the placements for our students. So as a student, when you come to ACU, you don't have to worry about, oh, I have to go out, I have to look for the placements, kind of sort all that out yourself. At ACU, our placement office will take care of that for you. So the main thing you just have to make sure is, you attend your placements, you do well, you get through the placements. So it's part of your learning and your training process to becoming a teacher. So we make sure we fulfill our role, which is to provide that for you and to have that sorted out for you, ready to go when you start your studies at ACU.
Okay, thank you. That's great, actually. And I have one more question. It's actually out of my curiosity.
Yep.
So what is the most popular course among early childhood education, primary teaching, and secondary teaching in ACU?
I think if we look at the undergraduate programs, normally it's our birth to 5 program and our early childhood and primary program that tends to be the more popular ones. Because I guess what we see a lot is, earlier you talk about the diploma of early childhood education and care program, have a lot of students who might do that diploma program first. After completing it, then they're looking at, going into higher education. So what we do get a lot of these students coming over to us at ACU because then they have the option of either going into the birth to 5 program or the early childhood and primary program and get credits for them as well. So these 2 programs would definitely be the more popular ones. I would say perhaps even the early childhood and primary program is more popular because once you have that qualification, you have a much broader choice of, perhaps what type of area you want to work in, because you can be an early childhood teacher, or you can be a kindergarten teacher, or you can even be a primary school teacher. So the options are there for you, much wider option. If we look at our postgraduate program, probably I would say it's the Masters of Teaching secondary program, simply because, for students, doesn't really matter what background they're coming from or what previous qualifications they have. Generally, you can kind of find a way to, fit into the program. Even if, say, for example, you had studied your background is in business, you've got a bachelor's degree in accounting or bachelor's degree in business, or you previously had a master's degree in business or it's business related field, you can still apply for the Masters of Teaching program. And one of your teaching methods can be business studies because they teach business studies in high school, right? So, so that flexibility, I think, attracts a lot of students. So it's definitely the secondary program for our master's degree course.
Okay, so thank you so much, Desmond. I think we have covered pretty much everything. So thank you so much for joining with us today and providing such detailed information about the course. Thanks again.
Most welcome. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you so much.
All right, see you next time.
See you. So finally, we are in the end of the session, and I'd like to thank Varni and Desmond again for all the important information that we had, and we will definitely be back with all the information session later in future as well. So if you have any questions, you can contact directly to our 3 offices, Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. Also do visit in our ACC website, www.aaccglobal.com.au, and do visit us at our Facebook and Instagram page for more updates regarding visa and courses. Thank you.